All right, so we'll call this meeting to order. This is the Places 29 Rayo meeting, regular monthly meeting on third Mondays of the month. And the meeting is being held pursuant to and in compliance with the emergency ordinance number 20-A16, an emergency ordinance to ensure the continuity of government during the COVID-19 disaster. Committee members who are electronically present at this meeting are, we have, Rachel's going to help me with this.
You want me to read them, Kim?
Cynthia, I see Cynthia. Bill Love, James Clemento, and Jane, I'm sorry, I didn't catch your last name.
Foy, F-O-Y.
We have
and
another
then,
Jane too.
and then
though.
Jane Fogelman. And then we have our board liaison, Diantha McKeel, and our commissioner, Julian Bivens, and John Lewis has joined us. Did I miss anyone?
Yeah, I think we're good.
And myself.
And yourself.
Kate.
Oh, Kate.
Kate who?
Kate
Oh,
Acuff.
Oh, Kate, I'm sorry. And our school board representative, Kate Acuff.
And there's Yolanda.
And Yolanda is, I think, joining us via phone right now.
There she is. Oh, you're home. Have you made it home? Yay. She was stuck in traffic is what we're yaying about.
Persons responsible for receiving public comments are the Places 29 Hydraulic Community Advisory Committee and Albemarle County Community Department staff. The opportunity for the public to access and participate in the electronic meeting are posted on the Albemarle County calendar. Please note that the chat is disabled. If you send something in the chat, this is sent to the meeting administrator. To ask a question or share a comment, use the raise hand feature to indicate that you would like to speak. Tonight we have a couple county staff personnel. We also have Rachel Falkenstein is helping us tonight with our meeting. And then we have Jade Thomas is with the school division. And we have Carolyn Schaefer is the clerk helping us tonight, as well as, I'm missing somebody. Oh, Kevin McDermott is here tonight as well.
Did you get Jay?
Yes, I think I did.
Okay.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. Did everybody have a chance to look at the last meeting minutes, which was a couple months ago? Anybody have any updates, changes, corrections, additions? All right.
I move that we accept the minutes as submitted.
Anybody second?
Second.
All right, we got all those in favor, say aye.
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 All right. So that takes care of our business portion. We're going to move on to Kevin McDermott, our wonderful transportation planning manager, who has visited us many, many times. And he is going to do some additional transportation overview updates. So I'm going to turn it over to Kevin.
And just
Right.
quickly, I see Chris Rimbold joined us. I'm not sure if you caught that, but I want to make sure Chris gets credit for being at the meeting. Hey, Chris. Thanks.
Hello, Kevin McDermott, as Kim said, I'm planning manager overseeing the transportation planning division. Tonight, I'm here to give you all a quick little background on transportation planning and how it works in the county, and then get into a few of the projects that we have going on in the Places 29 hydraulic area to try and give you some updates. I am going to share my screen as I have a presentation.
Kevin, we see it. Yeah, if you want to get it in the out of slot, there you go. You got it now. Thanks.
Got it there? Okay, wonderful. Also, just to let you all know, you'll notice that Jessica Hirsch-Ballerine's name on this slide as well. She couldn't make it tonight, but she is a principal planner for transportation with Albemarle County, working with me on all these projects. So you may run into her at other meetings, or if there's something you need, you're welcome to contact her as well. Our contact information is on the Albemarle County Community Development Department website. So the agenda for my discussion tonight is going to go through some of the background on transportation and how we move through that process. And like I said, then the project updates. We'll start by talking about where the projects come from and how the early planning process plays into that. We will also get into how projects are chosen, or project prioritization process. And then how we pay for projects, so how they're funded. And finally, how projects are scheduled, and talking about how the project implementation portion. And then finally, like I said, project updates. So moving right into how projects are identified. So Albemarle County staff works with a lot of different outside agencies, and we get projects from a lot of different areas. One of the first areas is that we work hand in hand with the Virginia Department of Transportation. Of course, VDOT does maintain and manage all the roads in Albemarle County, all the public roads in Albemarle County. And they are pretty constantly monitoring road conditions for things like safety and operations. They drive around the county, they take reports from people, and they do analyses on the issues that they hear about. And then we are regularly in contact, meeting and talking through those issues. Staff, myself and Jessica, we work with everyone else in the planning division to track development and identify its effect on transportation. So primarily when major planning applications come in, like rezonings or special use permits, the legislative applications, we review those, and we, if they're large enough, we may request that applicant submit a transportation impact analysis for the project. Or sometimes we just review the trip generation that we're expecting. So a transportation impact analysis would look at the existing traffic that's in the area of the development, and then estimate how much additional traffic would be added. And they actually model that using traffic modeling techniques to determine whether or not they're going to have a significant impact on the intersections or the segments of roadway around it. The next way is that we work with the Charlottesville-Albemarle Metropolitan Planning Organization to develop the long-range transportation plan. And that is a planning plan that's updated every 5 years. And for that, once again, they use modeling techniques and existing counts. And then they look out about 20 years into the future, and they will try and estimate what kind of traffic we would be seeing in 20 years and how that's going to impact the system. And they model that, and the outputs show us where we're going to have constrained roadways. They also look at other issues like safety as well, and bike ped analyses, and making sure that we're maintaining all our roadways through that long-range transportation plan. And then finally, we work with Rachel's team in the development of the comprehensive plan, master plans, and corridor plans that really look at the relationship between land use and transportation. And these are really important processes because that takes a lot of community input on those plans. And so that's our chance to go out to the community and really talk with you all about what you see out on the roads and find out what your needs are, and trying to make sure that the projects we identify are addressing those needs. Moving on to the project prioritization. So Albemarle County does have a list of the transportation priorities, and that list of transportation priorities is really the conglomeration of all those planning processes that I talked about on the last slide, and all the projects that are identified. We put them into one master list that has every project that's been recommended in every one of those plans around the county. It is supposed to be used to direct staff resources and county funding to the projects that will have the highest benefit. So we actually look through, we evaluate all of those projects by a list of metrics that includes safety, congestion, economic development, accessibility, land use, and environmental impacts. And we pull key metrics for each one of those and map them and assess the projects by how they will improve on any one of those situations. So for example, let's just say if there is an intersection that we have identified has a high crash rate, especially a high crash rate that would have fatalities and or serious injury accidents, then a project that would identify that safety plan would get a high score for that safety benefit, and that would help it rank higher. So we go through this whole list of metrics and then analyze those projects and rank them. Last time we ranked them was actually in 2019. And at that time, there were, I believe, about 89 projects that we had identified throughout the county. And so once we have that ranking list, we don't always go for number one first or number two first. We really are looking for opportunities. We try and start at the highest, at the top of the list, but sometimes there's specific grants that may favor a certain type of project, and that project may be number 6 or number 7 on the list. So sometimes we do number 7 or 6 before we get to number 1, but in general, we're trying to work from the top of the list down. What you see right here is a map of the Places29 hydraulic area and all the projects that have been prioritized in that area. You all have a lot, actually. I was pretty shocked when I saw the number of priorities that are identified, but I think it makes sense because, for one, your area is really urbanized. You're right in the center of town, so you have high levels of traffic on all of your roadways, not to mention that a lot of the area around the Places29 hydraulic area were older developments. So they weren't really built to the same standards that we require developers to build to today, such as sidewalks and things like that. So what you see in a lot of these cases are that the purple ones are bike ped projects. Those are primarily adding sidewalks or shared use paths where there are no existing bike ped facilities. And then you see a lot of intersection points on there that are safety concerns, which once again makes sense because you have a lot of traffic. You're really kind of in the heart of the urban area of Albemarle County. Yes,
Just a
ma'am.
comment, because I think you said we could ask questions. I just want to make a comment that when I look through this list, of course, there are many of this projects on this list that are actually in the Rayo CAC group. Just to say, yeah, it's a combination of, you have a combination here of hydraulic and Rayo CACs.
Correct, absolutely. So that's kind of just the way the map was made, because you're kind of an interesting shape of an area. So it did pick up a lot of the Rayo projects, but I figured you'd want to see those because you guys are right next to each other. You want to be able to, those projects are important to your area as well. And just to explain real quick, the list you see here, so the ones that are numbered 1 through 87, those are the ones that were prioritized in the last round in 2019. Since then, all these ones with the identifying letters, those are ones that we've added since that time. So some of them are the result of safety analyses that we've done of things like the Rayo corridor study that's ongoing right now, and other projects that we've seen that have really come about just since 2019. So the next time we update this priority list, those projects will be prioritized numerically as well. And I can go ahead and stop now and see if there have been any questions so far about what we've discussed.
Sorry if I jumped in too quickly.
You're fine.
John Lewis here. When is the next prioritization exercise going to happen?
We are actually starting that right now. We are hoping to really tie this round of prioritization in with the comp plan update. And so we're going to be working with some of the consultants that we're talking to that are helping us with that, to help us with that prioritization. We really want to fine tune how we are prioritizing these projects and making sure we're getting the right data. And so we're really looking forward to being able to work with an outside consultant. But the key date that I'm looking at is that next spring, there will be another round of revenue sharing and transportation alternatives funding grants coming open. And I will talk about funding here in a minute, so I'll explain those. But I want to make sure that we get this prioritized before we decide what projects we may want to look at in that next round of grant applications.
Hey, Kevin.
Yes, ma'am.
Cynthia, can I ask a quick question? Well, two quick questions actually. Is that I am not incorrect, I hope, in that the hydraulic road, Route 29, number 1 is, we don't have a date for that or funding, do we?
Yes, we do have funding, and I will. So the projects that are currently underway, I'll give a little bit of an update on later, and that is going to be one of them that is already kind of underway. So we will talk about that a little bit in a minute.
And the other thing was, you are aware of the Lambs Lane work that's going on, the study that people are doing, trying to figure out how do we improve that, because that had some pretty significant road challenges.
You're referring to the study that that the county is doing to look at the space needs of schools and the school transportation division. Yeah, we are aware of that, and we will do our best to account for that. And obviously, if there are needs that are identified with the road system through that study, then that's something we can add to our list of projects. So we'll keep our eye on it.
I think Jane, not Jane Fogelman, but the other Jane had a question, as well as Kate. Jane, you're muted.
Okay. Yes, my question was, I think sort of along the lines of Cynthia's, those projects that are prioritized with the number, have they all been designated a start date, or are they still waiting for something? Or we assume that they are going to be started or have been started?
No, not all of these with numbers have. So this is just the list of priorities. So these are projects that have been identified, but we have not gone out to try and find funding for all of these. As I said, we start up there at the top and we work our way down. So yes, project number 1 that you see on this list, we did get funding for it. And like I said, I will give you a little bit of an update here in a minute. And there's a few others on this list that do have funding. And actually even one that doesn't have a number, like LK, is the Commonwealth Dominion Drive Sidewalk project that did receive some funding that we are already working on. And there's a number of others. Oh, LL is the Albemarle Greer Jewett bike ped project that we're working on that was funded a few years ago. And I'll give you a little bit of an update on that as well. So a number of these do have funding, but most of them do not have funding yet. And so the process is like, how do we try and find that funding and go after it?
Kate?
Is it me? Kevin,
Kate.
I just have a question in terms of the process. How is this priority list developed I'm thinking about the county's climate action plan and how that may play a role in how these projects are prioritized.
That will definitely play a role. And that's one of the things I'm really hoping to work with the consultants on, is to find out the best measures that we can look at. In the past, because we didn't have a climate action plan necessarily, but we had a lot of goals in the county that spoke towards climate action. So previously we would rank projects highly if they improved bike ped connectivity. So that was a big point getter, because it related to land use, it related to safety, and it related to accessibility. So bike ped projects were often ranked really high in that case. So that is one way that they have been in the past looked at. But what we're doing now that we have an official document for that plan, the climate action plan, what we're going to do is try and develop some even better metrics to look at for climate action.
Okay, I did see Kim's hand, but I now see that Kim's hand has been lowered, but I see Chris and Kristen.
Me.
Yes.
And then Jane Fogelman. Chris
Yes.
and Kristen.
Yeah, this is Chris Remmel, and I see that there's a project about widening the 29 bypass. I'd like you, when you're talking about projects, to discuss why we should be widening roads here and not have roads for north-south traffic that go through either Charlottesville or further west or further east. Why does this corridor tend to get most of the traffic dumped down into it?
To be honest with you, the 250 bypass 20, I think that's project LX that you see. That project was identified in the MPO's long-range transportation plan. And what happened there, the reason it was identified was because it was when they put all the numbers into the system that assigned traffic to roads, they noticed that in 20 years, the 250-29 bypass would not be able to handle that amount of traffic. So it didn't actually get ranked last time because it wasn't the high priority projects. When the MPO did their plan, they grouped it into the constrained list and the vision list. And I didn't rank the vision list until we had already done the constrained list. So that's why it doesn't have a number. But my thought right now is that we're going to have to reevaluate that project to find out if that's still a valuable one that the county wants to do. And even if it is valuable, it's going to be a tough project to score highly in our process because of the fact that it does add lanes. That's really what the recommendation is. And I don't know if that's necessarily appropriate. And there's probably environmental impacts that would come out in that prioritization if we were to look at that. I think what we'd look at more would be smaller, distinct projects that addressed some of the minor needs or smaller needs that we can implement that would allow traffic to move better on that bypass, as opposed to just saying, let's widen this. So it was brought in because it was a previously recommended project, but I think that's something we're going to have to reevaluate in the next update.
Jane Fogelman. And if Kim had a question, Jane Fogelman.
Yes, Kevin, what is the scope of number 71? The Barracks Road 250 bypass ramp, right turn lane? What's these projects don't necessarily have a full scope. They may have an idea behind them, but very often it's just an identified need. So I want to just be clear about that. We don't know exactly what that project would do, but the idea behind that one, which we've looked at a number of times, is that on eastbound Barracks Road, as you're approaching that, particularly in the AM peak hour, that traffic just backs up really far and stops people and reduces accessibility and causes safety issues. So what we had talked about initially was finding some extra room in that area to add a right turn lane. The previous proposal, because VDOT did look at this one time, was actually to move, not actually add a new lane on the south side of Barracks, but to occupy some of the space in the center by removing a few of the left turn lanes right there and being able to shift those lanes to give you some extra room for a right turn lane for eastbound Barracks Road to get on southbound 29 bypass. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, sort of.
So if there are, as we move on, if that project is ranked higher, we will sit down and we will get into more details about how that project could address the issues out there and see if we can come up with other ideas. And I will add that when we do that, there is a public participation piece of that. So we will come back to you and talk to you all about the projects in your area. Any others, or do you want me to keep going? We'll have more opportunities for questions, obviously.
Just one quick one in terms of gateway or entrance corridors where you work with the city. You know, Hydraulic Road, you guys are talking about that intersection, but where Barracks Road crosses over to the city or some of the other areas. Is that included in this list, or how is cooperation with the city?
Yes, that is included in the fact that so the city is a partner with us and we work with them on all of our projects that even approach the city-county line. But oftentimes the city is also a member of the Charlottesville Albemarle MPO. And so these projects are identified in that through the MPO. We work with them on the MPO. I don't know if any of you were in the MPO's recent public meeting on the smart scale projects that we're going forward with at this time, but obviously that's another instance where the city and the county are kind of hand in hand on that. I would say with that project number 71, the one on Barracks Road, as it goes into the city, we were also trying to figure out the best way to accommodate pedestrians through there. And we talked to them about how that right now that sidewalk on the south side of Barracks in the city ends well before you get to the city line. And we were talking to them about how if we did turn that into a project, we would want to make sure that the sidewalk connected as well. So that's just an example, but we are in close contact with the city on transportation projects that impact both of us. Okay.
I don't see any more hands.
Wonderful. Thank you. I will.
John was saying something, but he was.
No, I was speaking to mute. Don't worry about it. It's more a city issue that the sidewalks aren't ADA compliant now that we put in the ramps on the county side, which has made using that sidewalk much better for all pedestrians and even bikers. But on the city side, it's still not. So I have to go through the city I've already submitted a thing. I'll do another, but that's just a classic example of a cross-border cooperation. Thanks.
Yeah, sure. I'll keep moving then. So as I mentioned, funding mechanisms. So how do we get these projects funded? On this slide, you see 4 of the primary areas where the county does get funding for transportation projects. The first one, the one that we get the most money through, is the state Smart Scale grant program. This is a grant cycle that opens up every 2 years. We are in that grant cycle right now. So we are developing projects to submit. Actually, the submittal date for the pre-applications is due at the end of this month. So we have got a list of projects and we will be submitting that. And those projects tend to be the higher cost projects that the county has because there is no match required for that. So we can just ask the state to fully fund the project. It is a competitive grant process. They use those same metrics that I mentioned earlier that we use for our prioritization to score projects through Smart Scale. They use slightly different data points than we use because they have access to different ones. But I appreciate that because that allows us to see if projects would score well in Smart Scale, which is, like I said, our primary source of funding. So they score projects based on those five criteria, and then it's a cost benefit analysis. So the higher the cost of the project, the more benefit you need to be getting. Albemarle County has been really successful with this, and we got, I think, 8 projects awarded last year, and we've had a number of projects every year of Smart Scale that it's been around. So we can submit 4 projects total. The MPO is able to submit 4 additional projects on our behalf, and the PDC can submit 4 additional projects. And very often we fill all of those applications on a Smart Scale round. The next really popular source of funding is the revenue sharing program. And under revenue sharing, that requires a 50-50 match between the county and the state. And also it is bounded by a $10 million total project amount that you can get from the state, and $10 million for every 2-year cycle. Once again, this is on a 2-year cycle. It's on the opposite years of Smart Scale. So this year we go for Smart Scale. Next year we'll go for revenue sharing. This is once again a popular source of funds for transportation because it's less competitive, although you do have to put up that additional local match. Transportation alternatives is a federal source of funding that it goes through the state, but it is federal money. And that the purpose of that program is to expand non-motorized travel choices. So those usually are bicycle and pedestrian projects. The Albemarle Greer Jewett project, Safe Routes to School project, that was done under the Transportation Alternatives project. Those are also every 2 years. They go in the same year as revenue sharing. So if we wanted to go for a Transportation Alternatives grant, that would be next year. They tend to be smaller projects. There's not quite as much money available in that program. Those projects, we tend to try and keep those under $1 million. And understanding the $1 million sounds like a lot. Unfortunately, $1 million doesn't get us a lot in transportation. So those are smaller projects. And then the next one is the secondary 6-year plan. This is not a competitive process. The secondary 6-year plan is an allocation that the state of Virginia gives to Albemarle County. However, most of that money has to be used for paving unpaved roads. So that's where a lot of the money for the secondary 6-year plan goes. There is additional funding for maintenance in that program, as well as for what they call telefee money. And we have a lot of latitude for where we want to put telefee money. Unfortunately, it's only a few $100,000 a year. So once again, as I said, it sounds like a lot, but that doesn't get us a whole lot. So we may want to turn and put that telefee money to small projects like making sidewalks ADA compliant, like fixing ramps on sidewalks, things like that. So that's the other sort. That's the other source of funding that we frequently use. Getting into some that we less frequently utilize. The state of good repair. The state gets funding from the federal government for the state of good repair. And this is really funds that go into bridge and road rehabilitation or replacement projects. We don't have a lot of latitude on selecting those projects. Those are done on a scale based on how bad the condition of the bridges or the roads are. And that's really all it is to upgrade the existing facility to bring it up to a safe standard if it's a bridge, or improve the lifespan of the roadway. So that's what state of good repair is used for. Highway safe.
May I ask a question about that?
Yes.
Who administers that, or is like project manager? Is that mostly a VDOT function?
That is entirely a VDOT function. Yes.
Okay.
So they have like say a bridge rating system, and they start with the worst bridges in the state, and they work their way up, trying to address as much as they can.
Do they have, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say it is a significant amount of funds the state gets for it, but like I said, we don't really have a lot of pool on what projects it goes to.
But does the county have any kind of influence or kind of sway on what secondary roads might get repaved? Like if there's like roads that are like in really, really bad shape, like can we make a request? Or is that more?
We can absolutely make the request. And I think, you know, as I said, VDOT monitors condition of their roadways regularly. So they tend to know pretty well what shape all the roads are in, but that's not to say that they don't miss things. So if there are significant problems with a road, say it's potholes or the road is just breaking up, then I would recommend that you let me know, or actually VDOT does have a reporting tool called My VDOT. If you were just to Google My VDOT, you can put work requests in there. And if they get those work requests, they will go out there and look at the road and assess the condition. But right now, they also, on another website called Virginia Roads, you can look up their condition or pavement condition map. And that's really the primary source for identifying the state of good repair roads, is what condition is the pavement in. And they have a way to assess that. And then, so it's what condition and how much traffic. So obviously, you know, these small local roads that get, you know, under 50 cars a day on them, they will allow those to degrade a lot further than they would a road like 29 that gets 20,000, you know, vehicles a day on it. So, there are other factors that they have to consider. But once again, I recommend letting us know if there's an issue that you see out there, so we can make sure that we get attention to it.
All right, thanks.
Mm-hmm. So the Highway Safety Improvement Program, or HSIP, this is a project, this is a funding source that really looks at specifically only at safety issues. Very often they're looking at systemic improvements that they can put in, such as like the rumble strips that you see on a lot of our rural roads. That's the kind of project that HSIP would fund. They do signal optimization, because signalized intersections cause a lot of crashes. And so if they can improve the way a signal operates, that usually reduces those crashes. So that's another type of project. This is something that, once again, is primarily determined by VDOT as to where that funding's going, but in a maybe even more so than state of good repair, we do have ways to weigh in on that funding. They used to allow us to apply for those funds directly. They don't do that anymore, but we do work with our district and our residency office to try and identify those projects. And then finally, other federal state funding opportunities. These are maybe not regular grant opportunities, but they come around every once in a while, and we use them if we get a chance. The RAISE grants, which is what used to be called BUILD, and before that Tiger, that's the federal transportation funding mechanism. They opened that up. Land and Water Conservation Fund, Federal Lands Access Programs, and a number of others that the state uses. So they're smaller grants that don't come out as regularly, that we don't use as much, and they're very specialized, so only certain projects fit into those categories. And then local funding, of course. The county approves the capital improvement program every year. The CIP has in it what we term the transportation leveraging funds. If you've seen that or heard discussions about that from the Board of Supervisors, that is a flexible funding source for transportation projects that we often use to match those revenue sharing grants or transportation alternatives grants, or we can go ahead and do a project outright with that. So we don't always have to take state and federal funding. The county can decide to do a project entirely on its own and fund 100% of that. And that works out well for certain kinds of projects. And then finally, developer funded and constructed improvements. As I mentioned, we review all of the development projects that are applied for throughout the county. And when we identify issues that those development projects may cause, say, if a certain project is adding a lot of traffic to one intersection and we see that that is going to reduce the operations of that intersection to a level that we think is unacceptable, that developer can then come in and say, okay, I will rebuild this intersection as a roundabout, or I will add more turn lanes or rebuild the signals or do something like that to allow the continued operation of that intersection without having my development impacted. So that's another way that we get it. They can build projects directly, or they can just provide funds to the county to use on certain projects. And then just a quick slide about the implementation process. So just so everyone knows, there's really 3 phases to any one project. The design and planning, those kind of go together. That's that early stage of the project. And then once we get the design complete, we move into the right-of-way acquisition. Once we get all the right-of-way necessary for the project, we move into construction. Depending on the type of project, they have different ranges of timelines for them. Locally funded projects, because we don't have to wait for VDOT on that money, because we don't have to go through as many VDOT reviews, and because they tend to be smaller projects, those projects we can usually accomplish in 3 to 5 years. Whereas once you get into transportation alternatives, those are slightly, and revenue sharing, those are slightly bigger projects. Revenue sharing, we have to wait until the state allocates those funds. And that usually comes pretty quickly after we apply for them, but it still takes a little bit of time. Those end up taking 5 to 8 years. And then finally, the smart scale projects. Those are very large projects. They take a long time to develop. And also they take a long time to get the full amount of funding for. So if we apply for a smart scale project that is awarded funding, VDOT will put that in what they call their 6-year plan, similar to our CIP, but they don't fund it in the first years of the 6-year plan, because all that money is already gone. They fund it at the end of that 6-year plan. So very often for smart scale, we have to wait 3 to 4 years before we can even start design on that project. And so as a result, those projects tend to take anywhere from 8 to 11 years from those early planning stages all the way through to construction completion. I'm about to get into the project updates. Did anyone have any other questions before I start into this on funding?
I don't see any hands.
Okay, I'll keep moving then. So the first project I was going to talk about is the hydraulic 29 improvements. As I said, this project was funded through Smart Scale last year. We had tried 2 or 3 years ago for a package of improvements out here at Hydraulic and 29 that did not get funded. So we reevaluated what we were looking at and came back with a different project. And this is the result of it. This is what got funded. What you see here is right there at the hydraulic 29 intersection. What they are going to do is they are going to remove the left turns from both directions on hydraulic. So you will no longer be able to make a left turn from hydraulic onto 29, coming from both sides. What that does is that frees up a lot more signal time for the through movements on 29. And the reason they think they can do that is because we have other options for making any of those movements. For one, you can take District Avenue up to the intersection where near Costco, which is a signalized intersection. You can also go, say, through the intersection, and they're going to construct a new roundabout here at the Whole Foods intersection at Hillsdale there. So instead of making a left directly, you could go through around the intersection and come back and make a right. And then also for the left turn, they're trying to satisfy that by allowing people to, or getting people to use the 250 to the Emmett Street intersection now. So that would be another way to get to all these things. They are also adding a at-grade pedestrian crossing of hydraulic right here, and an off-grade, a pedestrian bridge over 29 up here on the north side of Stonefield. Along with that, they're adding 2 bus pull-offs so that we can start servicing this area with transit much more easily than it could be right now. So buses can get off there and people can walk on the overpass. As I mentioned, they are gonna they're putting a roundabout in at Hillsdale and Hydraulic. They are going to close these roads. I think that's Mitchie Road right here. This part is in the city, but that is they're going to close that to left turns out because you'll be able to use the roundabout to do that. And the same with the other road here, which I'm sorry, the name's escaping me right now, but that's a city road, so I just don't paying attention, I guess. But they're going to close that to left-hand turns as well. They will be adding improved pedestrian facilities along that section and doing some work right there at that intersection. And then finally, they're going to add a protected left turn, what's known as a green T down here at Angus. So what they'll be able to do there is you will be able to make a left turn from Angus onto 29 by only stopping the southbound traffic. So northbound traffic would be able to keep going in its own lane here, and that left turn can get on and then merge with that traffic up higher. So that'll improve operations at this intersection as well.
So Kevin,
yes, ma'am.
You do have a couple of hands up. We have Cynthia and then Bill.
Okay, let me just add before I take the questions, I'll just say that this project is in design right now. So they are starting to work on this. The funding is all going to be available in these next couple years. I think it's going to take a while to do the design. I think we're probably still about 5 years out from construction, but that's the recommendation for this intersection and the funding cycle. So I can go ahead and take comments. Did you say Bill was first?
Cynthia.
Oh, Cynthia, okay.
Yeah, no, it's, so like, I love roundabouts. I'm one of the people that, have been happy, everyone that has gone in. But I look at this one by Whole Foods and I just go, what the, how is that possibly? That's a lot of cars that go through. I go through here every day. I would love to see a model of how the cars move, multiple lanes of cars around the same circle. I mean, we're confident this will work.
Yes, and it was modeled, actually. It was modeled during the hydraulic planning process, I think hydraulic 29 planning process. And I believe those models are still available online if you go to that website, and they do, you can watch the video of the vehicles moving through it. And those vehicles are built on actual traffic counts. So I have driven some multi-lane roundabouts in the past. I think the first time maybe you get into it, it can be a little confusing, but once you realize how it works, it starts to become second nature, and you don't even notice it. They believe that this will address that traffic problem.
Well, I hope they're right.
I do too.
So my question is, so based on this description of the project, should we assume that the idea of putting hydraulic over or under, I forget, 29 is totally off the table now?
Yes, that is off the table at this point. they basically realized there was no way they could get that project funded. It was just way too expensive. And so they think that this is a more cost-effective solution. And, you know, well, and when I say never, I don't mean never, never, but this is what we are going to go with for now. And we believe it will take care of the problems out there for the foreseeable future. We can always go back and take another look in many years, but I would say that the off-grade underpass or overpass is not going to be something that we're going to look at again for 15, 20 years at least.
Okay, I'm actually happy to hear that because I think it would have thrown a lot of traffic up Barracks Road and onto Georgetown, and then continuing on Hydraulic to get to 29. And I live at Georgetown and Hydraulic, so I'm actually happy to hear that that's gone. The other thing is eliminating those 2 left turn lanes. One place it'll be difficult to get to is the post office. I guess you'd have to go all the way down around the under that roundabout, but I don't know. Is there any possibility they might keep one of those 2 left turn lanes?
I don't think there's any possibility that this is the project that was awarded. If you're awarded funding for Smart Scale, it's really difficult to change that unless you can prove that it's going to be less expensive and have the same benefit or more benefits. So I think that'll be removed, but the good thing about that is you don't even have to go around the roundabout and come back to 29, because now with the Hillsdale connection, you can get to the post office by just going north on Hillsdale and come back at it from that direction. So you could go up and go to the Zan Road roundabout and get right back on, or you can continue up Hillsdale. So there are other options, and really that's what they realized was there's so many different ways you can get to things on 29 in this area that removing those left turns shouldn't be that impactful to drivers or add additional time to drives.
Okay, I think Jane Fogelman.
Yes. Kevin, I have spent a lot of time in the UK and driven in multiple lane roundabouts on the motorways, and they are not easy. And the Americans seem to have a very difficult time with the concept of roundabouts. And I would task you all once again to do some infomercials on TV showing people how to drive these roundabouts, and particularly the multi-lane ones, because they don't know to use their turn signals to indicate what their purpose or what their route is, you know, continuing around the roundabout or taking one of the exits off the roundabout. But if you all do some infomercials, I think it would help tremendously in teaching people how to use the roundabouts. Eventually they learn, I think, but there's a big learning curve out there, believe me, and a lot of bad things can happen during that learning curve period. So that's my advice.
Yeah, agree. I think that's a great idea, and we will talk about that with VDOT to see if we can do some promotional work when this is getting close to opening up, so that people understand the way it does work. The good thing is that most people that go through this probably go through it regularly. So although the first time or first couple times they do it, they may not quite know what to do. They'll figure it out. And then the other thing is that roundabouts are a safety improvement as well. So because signals, people can move through signals at high speeds. If they see that signal's green way up ahead, they just keep that, you know, that 35, 45 mile per hour speed that they have. Whereas roundabouts force everybody to slow down, and they remove the angle crashes. So if you do have an accident in a roundabout, you know, it's awful because you're in an accident, but luckily we don't see a lot of serious injuries from accidents in roundabouts. So that is the other benefit of them.
Well,
Anything else?
Kevin, that was a great presentation. I just want to be conscious that we have Jay Thomas here for a presentation as well, if all the questions are answered, not to try and rush you, but.
Okay, yeah, I'll keep going. I do have some other projects. I'll give you quick updates, and maybe if we just hold questions till the end of that, I got a few more slides, and then we'll see where we are with time. I do want to add, or you want to?
People can also email you any questions they might have as well, just to say.
Very true. Very true. So the other thing I want to add about this project is that right now in the Smart Scale round, we are going for an application for a roundabout at District Avenue in 29. So then you would have roundabouts on both sides of 29 of this intersection. So that's another piece of the package of improvements that was recommended. It didn't get funded in the last round, but we're going back for that again. Moving on, the Commonwealth Drive, Dominion Drive sidewalk project. This was funded a few years ago through revenue sharing. We have been doing engineering on this project right now. We've realized that we do have some cost issues with the project, which we have with a lot of our projects right now because of the cost of materials and labor all going up. This will be the subject of a discussion with the Board of Supervisors at the first meeting of April. So we are going to go back. This is being led by our Facilities Environmental Services Division, and they're going to talk to the board about some ideas of splitting this project up and maybe finding some ways to have some realize some cost savings. But that project is scoped to provide sidewalk along the south side of Commonwealth from Hydraulic all the way up to Dominion, filling in those gaps, and then down Dominion to 29. So that was the scope. We will be talking to the board about that on the April 6th meeting.
I would say, can I just say, people have been asking us, I mean, for a lot of times, where we are with this. So
yeah, and like I said, I would encourage you all to listen in on that discussion on April 6th, and you'll be able to get a little bit more detail, and hopefully we can find some ways to really move that project forward. The next project is the Berkmar Drive shared use path. This is a little outside of the hydraulic CAC area. It goes from Berkmar north of Rayo Road, and it really builds off of the previous shared use path that we have that goes from the roundabout, the new section of Berkmar. This extends that shared use path south past Woodbrook, and we're also looking at how we can extend that all the way to Rayo as well. So that project is also in design. We are trying to work with VDOT on some of those design issues right now, but hopefully in the next 3 years, we would be complete with that construction. And then just a quick update on the Albemarle Greer Jewett bike ped improvements. As I mentioned, this was awarded Safe Routes to School funding. This project is going out to bid, I believe, this week, or I'm sorry, it's being awarded. The bid is being awarded. So that means construction will be starting very soon on this one. They had some issues with the initial bids, but they've got that all worked out. The construction company should be awarded the project this week, and once that happens, you'll see construction happen fairly quickly. I think it'll be done by fall of this year. And then I wanted to remind you all about the Rayo corridor study, which is just across the road from you all. This process is still ongoing. It's identifying improvements on Rayo from 29 all the way to the city line. Phase 1 went to John Warner Parkway. This is what they're recommending at Hillsdale and Old Brook intersection, where all 4 of those roads come in at once. They looked at a bean roundabout, but this is still just a study. We're not going for funding on this yet. This is a study looking at potential and future improvements. And I believe that was it. So I will leave it up to you all to decide how much time you want to give for questions, or if you want to just email me questions, it's up to you.
I think emailing you questions and, sharing those responses, but emailing you questions. I know that Diantha and Kim had their hands up, but Was this in reference to what we were talking about now, or just thanking Kevin and going right into Jay Thomas?
I actually didn't realize I had my hand up. I
Oh,
apologize.
yes, your hand is up.
I had one quick question, if it's possible, just.
Go ahead.
Kevin, would you go back to the Commonwealth Drive slide, please? So in the lower image, I had wondered if you were gonna have this on here, but at the intersection of Greenbrier and Commonwealth, there's a little part of the sidewalk that is not connected. So as you're going up to Charlotte Humphreys Park, the sidewalk ends right at Commonwealth. And then if you make a right onto Whitewood, there's no sidewalk, but it's only like a few, like 10, 20, 30 feet or something like that before there's another sidewalk. Is there any way you could, I don't know, include that tiny, tiny, tiny section to be included in this Commonwealth sidewalk?
Well, as I said, we are looking right now at some ways to change this, alter this project slightly, and maybe break it up into multiple projects. But I will talk to the design team about that. And if it's broken up, that might be the great opportunity to say we can add that to it and make all of this other part a second project. But let me look into it and I'll see.
Okay,
I
thank
think
you.
I know the area you're talking about.
Yeah, thank you.
And we will look at it. Yes.
Well, thank you so much, Kevin. We really appreciate all that information. If there are any questions, please be sure to send your questions to Kevin. We will move right now into our Albemarle High School redesign project update with Jay Thomas, the Albemarle County Director of Secondary Education. Good evening.
Hey, good evening. Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me. Just have a couple slides here I want to kind of share with you and talk about for a few minutes. Definitely won't be long. I know not everybody here has students in our school system, so I'm not going to go through the full presentation. I just want to talk to you about some of the exciting things that are going on in our high schools and how it affects us all in the community in a positive way. First thing I just wanted to show you, if you go to our school website, go under division and go to high school redesign, it'll actually take you to this site here, which we have multiple presentations that we've done for our families. And the one on the left is actually a voiceover. So if you clicked on it, it'll take you through all the slides and you can actually listen to the exact presentation that we did if you're interested in hearing more after today. But really what I wanted to talk to you guys about is we've been shifting, actually back when Diantha was on the school board, we were really talking about our transcripts and what it looks like. And they were really heavy laden with content knowledge. And the state had asked us to start looking about what would a profile of a graduate look like in your community. And we really focused around the 4 you see on the left and trying to merge that to what it looks like on the right, the career exploration, community engagement and civic responsibility, and workplace skills. How do they all have an equal place in the experiences as kids go through our school system and then into our communities to work or to go to school? So we've started this work of what we called high school redesign. We've called it a couple things back in 2015 and really starting to take a look at opportunities for students and how do we expand those opportunities? How do we be strategic about it? And how do we partner with groups in our schools, in our community, and what does that look like? And so the last slide I want to show you is what our proposed career learning communities look like. So what we've landed on is federal and state have what are called career learning clusters. And what we are building out is actually really similar to something actually Diantha helped me build out at Albemarle High School and then expand to the other schools, which was the arts and letters pathway. Do you remember that, Diantha? We went around Thomas Dale High School and some places.
I do. That was great fun. Yes, I remember.
Yeah. And what the premise with that is how do you take these experiences where kids are really passionate and excited about something, allow them to go deeper into it during their high school experience, but not just with that academic piece. What we build in is they had to do observations and get out in the community and they do 10 hours in their 10th grade year, starting to figure out what kind of jobs are in my community. That if I wanted to pursue something like this. In 11th grade, they started doing internships and mentorships. In 12th grade, they did capstone projects. So we actually took that premise to the career learning communities and we said, how do we expand out all these opportunities? There's so many jobs in our area in Virginia that kids can get involved in, whether they go to community college first, four-year college first, or go straight to the workforce. And how do you start developing out pathways in high school so kids can experience these a little bit deeper to either say one of two things, man, I'm really interested in this and I want to explore it more, or thank God I didn't follow this path for work or for college because this isn't something I'm interested in. And so that's what we're really building out with our teachers right now, is these wonderful experiences that the kids can go through and try to have a better understanding of. And this is where I think the community piece comes in, is because the same as that arts and letters pathway I was giving you the example of, our kids are going to be out there looking at different businesses and talking about what's available and what does this look like and what does this mean for me. Kids, a lot of times we talk about what kids are interested in. We don't always talk about what their aptitude is and what they might be good at. And so trying to help them understand that a little bit better and develop out opportunities for them to do that, which might lead to some internships and mentorship possibilities for them. So I just wanted to take a second. We had presented this and Dr. Akoff had come to the presentation and just asked me to kind of share that with you and highlight that. And you're probably going to be seeing more and more from our schools. This will start to go into effect with our current 8th graders that are rising up to 9th graders. And so next year is really finalizing and building out the curriculum and the pathways. And then the following year, you'll actually see this start to come to fruition. So again, we're doing this some already in our current academy model and some of our spinoffs like the arts and letters pathway. And I think you're going to see it in a bigger capacity as we move forward. And there's a lot of excitement about that. So thank you for allowing me to share that with you. And if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer any.
Jane Fogelman, your hand is up. I wasn't sure if that was from something earlier.
I got a question. In your boxes here, I'm missing sort of the technology and software development. And I know that sort of the new lingua franca did something that probably applies to all the boxes, but
yeah, I'm sorry.
In the new
yeah, we have that, Mr. Lewis. I apologize. So we have some current offerings already, right? And so that's where that's hit. So you see the information communication technology, you see the pieces with the engineering, the medical health and science and stuff like that. So I'm sorry, what I didn't say to you guys, I should have started with that slide and say, this is what we currently have, and this is what we're expanding to add in addition to. So,
so it's additive. Great.
It is.
Wow.
Yes.
That's
so
great.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. Thank you that's a great question. So thank you.
No, but it's great.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, it's opportunities for kids to explore. I mean, and that's what we're excited about, and have multiple different ways for kids to put together experiences, and a great way for us that we've been talking for years. How do we continue to partner with the community, with the needs of the community or kids' interests? And I think you'll see a lot more from our work and community-based learning position that we have in our school system coming out and seeing what is available and what the needs are and how we can make a marriage happen. So, Jane.
My question has to do with the ongoing curriculum at K-Tech. I sat on the Citizens Advisory Committee for Career and Technical Education under Tim Kane's time in office. And I'm a little concerned that I've seen commercials with or news pieces where K-Tech is asking for students, and I'm a little concerned about the needs and the development of career and technical education not being developed, not necessarily being diminished, but certainly not being expanded. And that concerns me because that involves a huge population of kids.
Absolutely. And it's a wonderful opportunity. Jane, great question. You know, one of the exciting things is I've been working with Stephanie Carter, who is the lead over there. And she was so excited. We've really been working with our school counselors and our schools and bringing them in and showing them all the opportunities. Kids are doing tours of Center One and of the base schools and of K-Tech. And she right now we're in a process of kids registering, finalizing that with their counselor to make sure they're on track with graduation and locking it in. And what she is currently seeing right now, if the numbers hold true, is a significant increase for next year to K-Tech of the number of kids that are interested in going there. So I think this is great. I mean, and that's what she's trying to figure out right now. Like, what exactly is this attributed to? Is it a combination of things? Is it the amount of work that we've been doing to publicly promote this to the kids and advertise it? So, so yes, we've held pretty steady at K-Tech for a number of years. You're absolutely right, but we're anticipating those numbers to start to go up based on current enrollment trends that we're seeing this year.
Will there be any additional courses of study at K-Tech other than what you have now?
And that's what we're exploring right now, Jane. So we've got committees of teachers for each one of the pathways that you're seeing right here and here that are working together to build those out and see what are the additional things that may be of need and how will that marry to some of the current programs or add new programs in. So that's what we're developing out right now with our current school board and Dr. Akoff.
Yeah, no, I'm with Jane. I think, I mean, it's great. K-Tech is a wonderful site, but we need to do more IT and technology and communications and less hairdressing and that kind of stuff. I just, I mean, we really have to make a place for kids to have options.
Yeah, and one of the
they
things
can still be successful.
Yeah, and that's one of the things we're trying to do with the career learning communities. When we shared it with the board is when you go back and we were talking about kind of re-envision the school experiences, part of that is giving kids options, right? And not just saying, you're going to do this class, and this. It's saying, what are you interested in? What's your aptitude? And why don't you try some classes along this pathway? And it gives them a chance to experience things that they may not even know, what they are. And so I think you'll see a lot of different opportunities popping up, so that if a kid is interested in hairdressing, then by all means, we want to have the best program available. If they're interested in technology, we want to make sure that we have the best experiences for them there as well. So I think you're going to see a better marriage and alignment of pathways and programs to give kids the classes and opportunities they need to be successful. And that's where I hope, the continued building out of partnerships with local and regional businesses and community members as well can help us with that.
And I hate to butt in again, but I think it's very important that we understand the ongoing relationship between K-Tech and PVCC.
Yeah, not just K-Tech, PVCC, we have a wonderful, wonderful relationship with Piedmont Virginia Community College with a lot of our schools. We have an early college scholar program that's housed at Monticello High School. Kids can actually get a 2-year degree by the time they graduate high school by putting pathways of classes together. We have lots of kids. The nice thing about PVCC is it's a guaranteed college transcript, right? Where your AP classes, you got to score a certain score. Schools may take it or may not. And not every school takes your PVCC classes as well, but it's a guaranteed college transcript that you have when you go there. So I agree with you, Jane, not just with K-Tech, but with the other programs. We have a wonderful partnership with PVCC.
Kim, did you have a question, or Bill?
No. Oh, go ahead, Bill. Sorry.
Yeah, are there any special efforts in this whole scheme to work with kids who are on the spectrum? Let's say a kid who has what was known as Asperger's. I think that's out of fashion now to use that term, but who has certain skills but may not interact with other people the same way as other students. Are there any special are there any special efforts underway to work them into this whole process?
Oh, yeah, Bill, good question. We already do that, which is wonderful. So we have, through the IEP process and through the 504 process, we have accommodations for students if they're eligible. So I can speak, I haven't been at Albemarle High School as the principal there in 5 years, but when I was there for the 8 years, lots of our special needs students were in the MESA program and programs like that. And if they need accommodations, that's where the IEP and the 504 would address that. So yes, they currently already are. And one of the things we've worked hard to do is really get rid of some of the gatekeeping of the hurdles the kids need to jump over to apply to get in the program. And really high school should be about, if I'm excited about something and I want to try something, everybody should have that opportunity to be able to try it. We shouldn't make you jump through a number of or a number of other courses or a number of application process and then choose some kids. So that's one of the things that you're going to see through this process that I think will open up more opportunities for more kids. And at the end of the day, I always say, hopefully open up more doors and pathways for students when they walk out of our schools and Albemarle County Public Schools. They should have a choice, whether they want to go to the military, whether they want to go to the workforce, 2-year college, 4-year college. They should have multiple opportunities that they experience through us that gave them that lens and that excitement. So yes, good question, Bill. So we've tried to remove some obstacles as well as support any student who has those needs in the classroom. So thank you.
Kim?
Yeah. Well, as a parent of a child who will be the first in this cohort to go through this, I have a son who's an 8th grader now. What is the school division going to have in place to support kids that are coming back into the school system at the 9th grade level with all these changes? But my son has basically never been to middle school. So he is currently virtual and he has never been to middle school except for the first part of 6th grade. So how is the division looking to support these kids in this transition with this whole new model?
Good question. I think there's a lot of things we're doing. So first of all, I'm right with you. I've got triplets that are in 8th grade. So they've haven't had the same middle school experience. They are back in person now, but I mean, they've missed about 1.5 years of their 3 years of middle school because of COVID, right? So they've had a little bit different time adjusting back and forth with that. The county's put in some specific positions, specifically around mental health and awareness in our counseling offices. We've done some trainings with some of our folks, again, specifically some counselors and administrators, and just trying to, get to know as cliche as it might be, but building relationship with kids and really getting to know them helps answer a lot of questions that you really have, and making sure that every kid has multiple adults in that building that they're comfortable going to and talking to and sharing with. And I think we're getting better and better at that as a community, as we really focus around social emotional learning, not only at the elementary with responsive classroom and developmental designs at the middle school. We have seminar and other experiences at the high school. So social emotional learning has been a huge component for us. I know it's some of the things we put in place have benefited one of my children in particular who had a hard time during COVID and has gone through some things as well. So I think we'll continue to make sure that we have an eye on that and making sure we're putting services around kids, especially as they're in need. So.
I will make a comment. Jay spent years trying to convince me to take one of his triplets. Every time I remarked on how cute they were, he would say, "Do you want one?"
That's right. Just pay for college and then you can send them back, right?
All right, I don't see any more hands.
That was really a great report, Jay. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but it was
No, I was just ready to say thank you for that information.
That was great.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
How are
it
you,
was great.
Yolanda?
We're well, thank you. Jay had 2 of my kids.
Amen.
So thank you again, Jay, and we really appreciate that information. Great information.
Absolutely. Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it. Thank you, Dr. Acuff, for the opportunity. So
Thank you.
you'll have a wonderful evening.
You too.
Thanks.
Okay, Rachel, planning manager, long range planning. You're going to provide us with an update on scheduling topics for the remainder of 2022.
Yes, that's right. Hi, everyone. I'm Rachel Falkenstein. I think I know most of you, but I don't get to come out to see you all too often. So good to be here. I just really quickly wanted to share an update, a new approach we're taking with the CAC scheduling, really in an attempt to be a little bit more structured with our CAC schedules and topics to help staff plan ahead a little bit better, and also to help us prepare as we begin a comprehensive plan update, which will be getting started this spring. We want to really the same staff working with our CACs, or the staff working on the comp plan update. So help us plan ahead for staff time a little bit better, but also hopefully to encourage, if we do our scheduling right, to encourage you all to come out and participate in comp plan meetings, because we'll be having a series of public meetings for our comp plan that I'm sure CAC members will be interested, and we want to encourage you all to come out. So I'm going to share a proposed schedule with you all. So hopefully you can see my screen now. This is, I'll call this a tentative schedule because things change, and if topics come up, we want to maintain flexibility to be able to accommodate additional topics. But also, like I said, be able to plan ahead and coordinate with other staff who are subject matter experts in these topics to be able to come out to your meetings, just like Kevin did today, to share information, present information, and then field questions about some of the big initiatives that are happening across the county. So this schedule alternates a topic where we would have a staff person come out and talk with you all on 1 month, and then on the alternating month, we hold time for community meetings. If there's a development review application in your area that needs to have a community meeting be hosted by the CAC, reserving time for that. And so those meetings, you may not have one needed every time we have a reserved meeting. So we're leaving it up to the CAC. We're recommending you consider canceling that meeting, and the timeline will work out such that comp plan workshops hopefully will align with those months. But if you all still want to meet, if there are topics that are of interest to you, I know Supervisor McKeel brought one up earlier, and you want to hold a meeting, that's okay too. We may not have a staff planner present at that meeting, but we can still host it. Carolyn should be able to still attend through your monthly meeting and host the Zoom meetings as long as they're virtual. But I may not be there. We may not have a long range planner at those meetings. So these topics in the gray, you can see kind of our subjects. So transportation was in March. In May, we're looking at climate action planning. We may also want to do a quick budget overview if that's of interest to you all during that time, because that will be around the time the board is adopting the budget. In July, we typically do a summer recess, and that aligns with what we've done in years past. And I know our board is taking off a meeting in July that will allow staff and board members to travel. And then in September, we're looking at our parks and green systems update. In November would be economic development. And we're also looking at a strategic plan update this year. So we'll save time for that topic. And then, as I said, every other month would be a community meeting, or you all can choose topics of your interest and still meet without staff. We can also coordinate 1 or 2 presentations. We saved June and August for additional topics where you want staff to come out. We can coordinate with you on that as well, but we won't be able to do that on every off month. So that's all I have. I wanted to, and I'll also say our comp plan, it's getting started. We'll have our first public workshop. We're looking at dates end of April, early May for that public workshop. We'll have those dates sent out to the public through our county newsletter. If you all subscribe to that, we'd like to announce those by the end of March. So we'll have dates in advance. We'll also send that to our CAC so you all know when those meetings are. But we'll have a variety of public opportunities. There'll be in-person meetings. There'll be virtual opportunities. There'll be online questionnaires related to the comp plan topics that we do. So we'll encourage you all and share information about those. So any questions or any comments you all want to share about this approach?
I will just throw in that I do know, Rachel, that this particular CAC likes to talk about the issues and see topics that are relevant in our hood. For example, Charlotte Humphreys Park work and other related topics. So it may be that what I would suggest, and I understand your all's lack of staffing and the work that's going on with the comprehensive plan. I think, though, that we would be able to handle, a couple of these meetings during the year on our own. And while, and I do agree, though, that the July one probably for everybody just to know that we are doing something new this year with the Board of Supervisors, and we have canceled a meeting in July so that we can all take some vacations and do that work. I would suggest that our meeting in April, that we have a discussion around what we know is on the landscape right now that our CAC would actually like to talk about, what topics we would like to have addressed. We have a list that I think Rachel has the list somewhere that Michaela was keeping for us that of topics that you all had mentioned. So it might be good in April for us to just talk about that list and see what still appeals to you. For example, I mentioned earlier that hydraulic Hillsdale apartment complex is being discussed in the city. Now that complex is in the city, but it's in the old Giant lot over where Giant used to be across the street in the old why am I struggling here?
Seminole Square.
Seminole, yes. And that's right in our hood. It might be interesting at some point to hear from John Neal, because that is a Great Eastern Management project. John Neal is on, he's not here tonight, but he's one of our CAC members, or David Mitchell or Chuck. Someone could come and present that project to us because it really is in our hood. But we could, Rachel, easily arrange that without having staff to get terribly involved in that. So that would be my suggestion. I don't think that you all are going to want to give up some of the work that you've been doing on Charlotte Humphreys Park and some of those discussions as well. That's my sense anyway. So I'd love for you all to add any thoughts you might have, but so I think go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think us discussing it in April would be great.
Yeah. So I think that would be great. We'll bring the list of topics that have been on our tickler list, and we can see what topics you still like to hear about and what we can fit in, given staff's new recommendation for this schedule, how we might be able to work it, if that works for everybody. Is that okay with you, Rachel?
Yep, that's fine. And I can send the topics that I have that I know you've shared with me, and I'll send this schedule along so you can see.
Yeah.
And it will be where it's appropriate. It will still be kind of focused on your area. For instance, when you have the parks update, they will focus on topics related to your area, trail projects, park projects, just like Kevin did.
Right.
So when it's appropriate, they'll try and keep it focused to your area, but some topics might not.
Well, for example, I think the group had talked at one point about wanting to hear about middle density, because we have been talking about building middle density in this community. And the CAC, several of the CAC members mentioned to me that, and I know, Rachel, you all have a presentation already prepared on middle density. So that would be something that would be nice. We could even maybe do that in April, since you already have the presentation. Yeah, anyway, so we'll talk about April and see how it pans out, if that works for everybody.
I think that's a good idea. Thank you, Rachel. We have 2 minutes for Diantha and Julian.
And I'm going to give, I have a few updates, but really quickly, Jane Foy is a new member to our CAC, and I want Jane to give us the 30-second quick, here I am, I'm Jane Foy, this is where I live and who I am.
Famous, she's famous.
Oh, as some of you may know, I'm a retired broadcaster, having come here in 1990, I don't know what it was, and worked for about 20 years in local broadcasting. I am retired. I'm an author now. I have written one book about caring for dementia patients. I don't know if there will be a second one, but there is a blog out there. I would love for you to read it and give me your input. It's the A to Z dementiacare.com. I'm always trying to get input from other people who are caregivers and how we can make that unpaid, unappreciated job a little easier for people. My husband is currently in a facility, a dementia care facility, which is that's the end game when your loved one has dementia. So I spend my time trying to be his advocate and advocates for others going through the same process. So I live in our home right now, just with Roxy, my dog. And periodically I have the distinct pleasure of housing travel nurses, which has been a wonderful experience for me. I just love it. Having people of different backgrounds come in and live in my house and share my refrigerator. So it's been fun. And I'm flattered to be a member of the committee, and I probably will talk more than I probably should.
And Jane lives off of Commonwealth. I've forgotten the name of the.
I live in the Minor Hill Townhome.
Minor Hill. Yes, I couldn't remember. Minor Hill. Yep. I can get there, but I didn't remember the name. Anyway. So welcome, Jane. We're thrilled to have you. And with that, we are running a little bit over. I want to just say very quickly that if anyone wants to follow the Hillsdale hydraulic apartment, that proposal that I just mentioned, you can go on to the city's website, because they will be discussing that site plan this Wednesday morning at 10 o'clock, if anyone is really interested, and then we'll get them to come to us. Budget is ongoing, you all know that. The Board of Supervisors, the Planning Commission, and the school board are returning in person in April for our meetings. Our CAC meeting will remain by Zoom. We have broken it down into tiers. So the first rollout is the school board, Board of Supervisors, and Planning Commission with a hybrid model, Zoom and in person. But the CACs will be the third tier to roll out, and that'll probably be late summer, fall, perhaps. We'll see how it goes. So we're staying by Zoom for right now. I'm trying to think real quickly, what else do we need to talk about? Julian, you probably have a couple of things. We are short on time.
I would actually pass it on to Kate. Rachel does what she usually does, and that's when I was chair. She just says what she needs to say, which is what I was going to talk about, the planning, the comp plan that's come up. And so Rachel's prepped us for that. So I have actually would pass to Kate, and Kate, if you have something, okay, I'll just let you do that.
You're muted.
You're muted, Kate.
Jay already talked a bit about our schools. I don't know what in particular, a couple of things. As you know, completely untethered to science, that the governor required a lifting of the mask mandate as of March 1st. But the good for students, the good news is that we have had relatively few cases. We right now have an active outbreak at one of our elementary schools with 15 students. But it's also the case that because county prevalence is going down, we may well, so far we have teachers, staff, and visitors required to wear masks. We're going to be looking at that again this week at our meeting, and there may be some changes after spring break, which is the first week in April. Secondly, you probably know that 2 years ago, the General Assembly passed legislation permitting local governments and school boards to engage in collective bargaining. I guess it's sort of backwards. It's an extraordinarily poorly written statute. Bare bones, there's 50 years we have not had a history of collective bargaining in Virginia, certainly not for public employees, and notably the state exempted itself from the collective bargaining. Although we do anticipate we will get a petition from our teachers and staff probably this next meeting. And under the code, we have 120 days to respond. Anyway, so watch that space. That may be active. And that's about it. We've had since the beginning of school almost 300 newcomers, which Diantha knows means students who've come in after the first of the year. And disproportionately, they tend to be lower income refugee families also. And As is the case for the past decade, disproportionately IRC relocated families relocate in the county and disproportionately in our neighborhood in Jack Jewett. So I don't know how many of those. I sent a note out to Steve Sanders, our Greer Elementary School principal, to see how many refugee families we have there. I don't know, but as I said, as of about 2 weeks ago, we had 292 newcomer students in our school division. Just two other quick, we are at ACPS working with a consultant to stand up the Albemarle Foundation for Education. We have our third meeting this week, I guess. We have a terrific consultant out of Dallas who has stood up more than 24 successful foundations across the country. We think that will enable us to target specific teacher or student projects and experiences that will help us in our overarching goal of reducing the achievement gap. We also are standing up, and Diantha is the liaison to the Board of Supervisors, ACES, which is an advisory committee for environmental sustainability. And we at schools, one of its missions is to coordinate with the county's climate action plan, but also we're really focused on the three things that we can influence. Our buildings, our transportation, and our students. So, so far we have 25, hoping to have about 28 new school or facilities in the next 5 years. And that's a real opportunity. The other one is transportation. That's going to be much more difficult, I think. We have a grant that will provide electric buses to us. I think we get 2 after July 1st, but put that into the context, we have 200 buses. So the challenge with electric vehicles is electric buses are $300,000 and the diesel fuel buses are $100,000. So if we do our normal 3 to 5 buses every year, it won't be in our lifetime, folks, that we can make that switch, but we're working on it. Otherwise, we have slightly fewer students than we had before the pandemic. We are inching back up, but we are at our census as of in September, which didn't include all these newcomers, was 13,697. We were about 14,000 3 years ago. And many of you have already heard me squawking about capital. We have almost 100 classrooms in trailers. And we are putting on a 6 classroom addition at Mountain View, which is the former Kale Elementary School. Even with that, we have to keep the 8 classrooms. And maybe when I first got on the school board for elementary kids would go out for their music class or for speech therapy to a trailer. But now we have many, many, many of our elementary school kids in trailer classrooms all day long. Anyway, I think we need to work on that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I see a couple of questions. We're also running late tonight, which is very unusual for us. I just want to make the point that it's 7:09, and if folks have to go, feel free. But I do see.
I have a meeting.
Yes, go Cynthia.
Thank you,
Bye,
Cynthia.
sugar. But I do see 2 questions, Kate, if you want to take the questions for those who can stay.
I don't know, Bill, Kim?
Yeah, I'll go first. Any effect at all of the much ballyhooed executive order from the governor on inherently divisive concepts? Or has that been pretty much of a non-event?
I think it's so far a non-event. You probably saw that, every school superintendent across the state wrote a letter to the governor saying thank you ever so much for your point of view. So that has not been an issue so far.
I just want to say thank you and kudos to whoever it was that allowed the Greer folks to partner with the Piedmont Master Gardeners to put in the raised beds. I think that's a fabulous project. I just saw it in the news over the weekend. And I think that's just a great way to have kids being outside and engaging with nature. So I think that's fabulous.
I do too.
Here.
Okay, I don't see any more hands. All righty, so thank you so much, Kate, and thank you everybody for being here and staying over. We will close this meeting. Our next meeting will be April 18th or May 16th if CAC decides to cancel April meeting. But I just wanted to put that out there. Opportunities for the public to access and participate in the electronic meeting will be posted at a later date in accordance with emergency order number 20-A16 and open meeting requirements of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act. We will adjourn. We are adjourned at 7:11.
April, guys. Thank you. April
Have a good
18th.
night.
Good night.